So good morning.
Good morning.
Appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today.
Absolutely.
I'm interested in your career, and I just want to ask you some informational questions, and let's just see what you have to offer me.
Okay.
So what can you tell me about the position of the Director of the Center for Human Service Development?
Well, the Center for Human Services Development is an externally funded community outreach department of YSU. So we work with school districts, community-based organizations, and various different organizations throughout the Mahoning Valley to provide needs assessments, strategic planning, focus groups, program evaluation, program management, grant writing, just a myriad of services. So we ebb and flow to whatever the needs of the community are. And so my job as director is to kind of manage all of the financial aspects of it, make sure contracts are in place, so when we are secured for services that everything's done, we have that scope of work, we have that budget, we're able to present to our community partner, and then I kind of manage the fiscal end on the back road. So we have some grants, I manage the fiscal end on those. So I do a lot of the overseeing of the department and the functions, and I have an understanding of all of the different projects that are going on, whereas I might not manage them directly. I have staff that do that. For example, our entrepreneur program that is with Youngstown and Warren City Schools, I have a coordinator to oversee all of that, but I'm managing her financials, helping her to make some connections that she might not make, helping her to problem solve. And then I also go out into the community and attend various community meetings just to make the center known across campus, throughout the community, because we are so small and have been so quiet for so long. I'm trying to make some noise and make our services aware.
What type of community groups do you go to? Can you give me an example?
We work with school districts, so we have 4 after-school programs in 4 different districts throughout Mahoning, Trumbull, and Columbiana County. We're working with the Youngstown Metropolitan Housing Authority to help them identify services that their residents are in need of, so access to health care, employment services, transportation, getting an idea of what those services are that are in need, and then connecting them with either funding sources or other community agencies that may provide those sources or have resources to help YMHA provide those sources. We're doing some evaluations with Alta Behavioral Health Care. They have a program inside Youngstown City Schools where they provide services mental health services to the students right there in the building. So we're evaluating that for their report out to Youngstown City Schools to show if they're being effective and ways that they can change, or some of the roadblocks that Youngstown might be able to remove for Alta. We're providing some evaluation services for Mahoning County District Board of Health. They have a hub which is for pregnant women, and they are what the hub was founded upon was they had found that women who are in poverty and in a racial minority tend to not get prenatal care. They don't have that education. So the hub focuses on reaching out to those expectant mothers and new mothers to help link them to services that they may need, whether it's childcare for little ones so that they can attend doctor's appointments, or understanding healthy nutrition for themselves being pregnant or their newborns, and things like that. So, I could go
It just sounds
on.
like you offer so many
on.
services that are in such great demand. I would imagine that these community organizations would be thrilled to have you come in. It's that what you experience,
That's
or
what
do you
we're
find that you have to
experiencing.
educate them first so that they know what you're really bringing?
It's a little bit of both. We do have to educate because, like I said, we're so small, and so we've been so dormant for so long that it's just educating. Hey, we are here. We do provide these services, and if I rattle off a service and it's not what you need and you need something else, then we can mold and I'll help you link to whatever you need. We're just that community resource. And then once they do find out the services that we have to offer, I'm kind of to the point where I've only been there for 14 months, but I'm overwhelmed because I don't have capacity right now to help the community. So we're in the process of changing that, but it can be very overwhelming at times.
So I've heard you say services as though those are free services, but then I also heard you mention contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So what is, how does that divide up? How do you determine what is a free service to community members and groups, and what is a contract?
Because we are externally funded, we receive our sources for our salaries, our supplies, and everything we do through the contracts. So the majority of our services are fee for service. However, if I'm working with a grassroots nonprofit organization that's just trying to start up, I'll sit down and do some consulting with them, and it's not one of those I'm not going to talk to you until you pay me sort of things, but it's what do you need, what kind of resources do you have, and I try and build that relationship with them. And then once I have that true understanding of their needs, then I can just, even if I make a link and somebody else can provide, you know, transportation, because my office isn't going to provide that, but I can connect them with WRTA, who might, you know, is considering looking at rerouting some of their routes just to make sure that they're able to get so many people, for example. Then if there's a grassroots organization, maybe if I put them in contact with WRTA, they can do that. I don't know, but it's worth a shot.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell me, what do you find most enjoyable in this role?
That it's not the same thing. That I could go back to my office and I could pick up the phone and talk to somebody about solar ovens and hang up that phone conversation and get an email about economic development, and then respond to that email, and then go to a meeting later and talk to somebody about strategic plan. It can be stressful at times because it's never, focusing on one thing is very difficult, but it's never the same thing, and I get to meet a whole bunch of great people in my job and provide services and help others that I just wouldn't be able to do if I wasn't here.
Do you ever feel frustrated because it's such a wide variety of topics? I mean, do you ever feel like you have to kind of do your homework and figure out about solar ovens or whatever the topic is because you're not well versed in it? How do you manage that demand and learning curve?
I go to my network of people and I ask questions. You know, that's one of the great things about the position that I'm in. I get to meet so many different people, and if I don't have that strength, I'm upfront and honest with somebody. That's just part of my personality to say, I might not be able to do this for you, but one, I will learn, and two, I will bring in experts to the field and use those as resources. So if I'm providing a focus group and I've not experienced that before, I'm going to research the heck out of it. And being on campus, I have the campus as a resource, and I can go to anyone on campus and introduce myself and say, hey, this is what we do, this is what's going on, what kind of pointers can you give me, what kind of resources can I have, and can I call you with questions? And very rarely, if ever, have I experienced a no.
Oh, that's great.
It can be very overwhelming because the way that my brain works, I see all the possibilities, and sometimes it's hard for me to say, well, this truly isn't going to work until I sit down and I have to map out all the different possibilities. So if I'm in a meeting and somebody says, you know, we're really struggling with trying to find childcare and early childhood initiatives and things like that, once that mouse gets on that wheel and it starts going, it's hard for it to stop.
Mm-hmm. That's really exciting. So you are externally funded, so who is your boss? Do you have a supervisor?
I do. I report to the Dean of College of Education.
And how does that relationship work? Is it kind of a give and take? Do you take directive from him, or do you provide your own agenda? How does that work?
A little bit of everything that you just mentioned. I do get support from him. He is one of my resources, and he helps me to problem solve. He's there if I, get stuck, and can kind of either give me the tools to push through, or kind of be that backbone that sometimes you need the Dean of the College of Education to say, hey, she's in my college, she's got the go-ahead, because sometimes you need that. Sometimes you just need that little extra push. there are initiatives within the college that he will bring me into a meeting and say, these are things that I think that, you know, would be helpful. But then he also gives me free rein to know that this is something that's good for the center, because he wants me to be able to provide those resources for the community as well. A lot of the projects that we have do focus on education or education related topics, but not all of them. So he gives me that flexibility to be that resource for the entire community, but we're also a large resource for the education community.
Tell me about your educational background that prepared you for this role.
My bachelor's degree I received from Ohio University, and that's a bachelor's of science in, Bachelor of Arts in sociology. So I have that sociology background, and I focused a lot on criminology. I don't have a minor, but I was only like a class or two shy of a minor in criminology. So my program at OU is very focused on behavior. So we looked at why society does things, what behavior tells us, and it talks about communication. I have done a lot of work around children. That's my passion. It always has been. So I looked at a lot of different behaviors of children that were at-risk youth, some that were criminal. I did an internship in a minimum security juvenile detention center with boys.
Sounds challenging.
It was very, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. These boys were anywhere from 14 to 18 years old, and it was in rural Appalachia. They didn't know how their girlfriends were pregnant. I would work with 16-year-olds with the second grade reading level, and they didn't understand, so I loved it. I just didn't want to leave when my internship was over. Some of my other experiences were going to TICO, the Maximum Security Juvenile Detention Center in Columbus, and sitting in a room full of murderers under the age of 18.
Wow.
Just understanding what motivated them to enact on that rage, on those emotions, just to say, obviously you were upset, but let's talk a little bit about what was behind all of that and how your behaviors before, during, and after have changed and what that says about a person. And so from there, when I graduated, I got married very young. We started a family very young, and I couldn't imagine leaving my children and going and working with juvenile delinquents. That was my passion, but my children were my passion. So then I sort of switched to focus to early childhood. Stayed in early childhood, out of school programming for many, many years, focused on after school programs, to the point where I would run after school programs in 21st century community learning centers for Youngstown City schools, and looking at all of those behaviors and barriers and those non-academic barriers to learning. When a child is hungry, when a child has a parent who is turning tricks in the next room to get money to buy drugs, and they're taking care of their siblings and getting the siblings on the bus so they're tardy for school. They don't care about the math homework.
Right.
They care about food. They care about sustainability and sustaining their lives. So looking at all of those behaviors and how that's the barrier to education for our at-risk youth, and really diving into that. And then from that, I got into the research end of it and doing the evaluations and looking at how programs that we have, whether it's with children or with just at-risk population in general, are they effective? Why are they effective? Why are they not effective? And looking at the numbers. And so it's not been a straight road. In there, after looking at that research, then I came to YSU, got my master's in education. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I'm a licensed school counselor. Again, looking at those behaviors and those emotions that kind of drive everything. Once I graduated with my master's, I went into addiction counseling for children. Whether some of my clients did have substance abuse issues, but some of them were children of addicts, and working with them to say, look at the decisions mom and dad made. Is this something that you want? you know, bringing that family together and kind of working on those, again, those behaviors. Your child doesn't know how to say, stop, you're hurting me, because you're mom and she loves you regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So she's acting out.
I can hear the passion in your voice, and it sounds like you are uniquely qualified for this role. You bring so many pieces together with your undergrad and then your experience and then your graduate work. It sounds like it would be very fulfilling. I was going to ask you to give me an example, but you've given me so many of how this position is fulfilling. Thank you so much
You're
for sharing
welcome.
with me today.